Max Orland, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
After putting in the request to leave the Tigers, Shea Bolton has now headed over to Western Australia, back home, and he'll spend his football career for the immediate future at the Fremantle Dockers. For Richmond, what does this mean with another star player of theirs departing the club? For the Dockers, could this be the missing piece of their premiership puzzle? And for fantasy footy coaches in AFL Fantasy, SuperCoach, Dream Team and Keeper, can he elevate his game to a new level at this new club and finally become the premium that many hoped he would become? We'll talk about all that and more on this episode as we review the trade of Shea Bolton to the Fremantle Dockers. It's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you are well and enjoying this series. If you are, make sure if you're watching this as a video, you give it a like. And if you're tuning into the audio podcast, you give the channel a 5-star rating. Shea, at his best, is one of the most dynamic, groundbreaking, match-changing players in the AFL. Look, it's probably been 12 to 18 months where the Tigers have been way off that premiership era. To be fair, it's probably 2 years, if we are honest. But sometimes when a player like Bolton is not in and around a dynamic side competing deep for premierships and pushing for the top 8, he's just not able to be at his peak and at his best. Because at his best, at that back era of Richmond's premiership dynasty, he was the new damaging forward that had evasive skill and speed inside forward 50. If there was a ground ball get and a crumbing opportunity and Bolton was anywhere near it, opposition fans and opposition defenders were panicking wildly, knowing that he's got this ability and uncanny skills to just weave, to dodge, and to kick goals left and right side of his body in places and ways that, while not quite Eddie Betts type, was probably the closest we'd seen over the past couple of years. He's a scary prospect inside forward 50, and no defender wants to line up on him. But he's not just a evasive, elusive, scary forward goal-kicking option. When he goes inside the midfield, and for Richmond previously, when he'd been loosed through that midfield split of a 50-50, you felt pretty confident, even with the likes of a Dustin Martin, Tim Taranto, Dion Prestia, Jacob Hopper, even a Trent Cotchin at times, if you go back far enough. Bolton felt like the one that you were most concerned that if he won that touch from clearance, it could turn into a goal-scoring opportunity for Richmond, arguably ahead of any single one of those other really strong midfield options. And so Bolton is a scary unicorn in many regards because he, when he's in the midfield, offers speed, skill, and a dynamic X factor that not too many players in the AFL have. While you throw him forward, man, if that ball hits the ground, you don't want it being anywhere near him unless you're supporting or owning him in fantasy football, because he can create, score, and set up goals from almost anywhere inside that forward 50. And I think that's why Fremantle have given up a fair bit of draft capital, to be fair, but why they are so happy to get him. Because when you look at how I think they're going to play him, I think it's probably similar to that sort of 50-50 split, maybe 60% forward at probable peak that we've seen Richmond play. Their forward line, while unheralded by name, actually got some really handy weapons through there. The emergence of Josh Tracy is one of the reasons why they've been able to pursue Bolton, because they were actually rumored to be 12 months ago building this war chest of draft assets to be able to go after a Logan McDonald. But with Tracy emerging as that key young forward to sit alongside a Jai Amos, well, the need for a third tall of any sort of asset, let alone a financial requirement. It just wasn't there. And so for Fremantle, one of the key things they are lacking, and part of it's because of an aging Michael Walters, is they do need something below 6 foot that can create speed, defensive pressure, can be an absolute headache for opposition coaches, defenders, and fans, and can score goals and give them multiple avenues to impact the scoreboard. And Bolton does that inside forward 50. Additionally, what he does is he adds another dynamic to an already strong midfield unit with Brayshaw, Young, and Sarong. Where he fills these guys out is he adds a level of X factor and dynamic play that none of those three really have. They're all very, very, very good midfielders, but none of them, and they really don't have Fremantle, a midfielder that up until this trade could sit into that midfield unit and add a level of panic and dynamic X factor that he does. So they've now got this player that can be deployed and will be deployed across both these positions and add something unique to their team build-up. Their talls are set. Amos, Tracy, Jackson up forward. Now they've got the dynamic small forward that can break open a game. And they've also picked up a guy that can win first touch contested footy, set up opportunities by hand and foot through the midfield, and add a level of dynamic that they are absolutely lacking. So for Fremantle, politely, who cares what trade asset or draft capital you had to give up? You now have, in my eyes, with Bolton alone, let alone what you might do with existing other movements, your best 22 is elevated. The biggest missing piece in your side has absolutely been found now with the arrival of Bolton. So this is awesome for your football club, and you should be very, very happy with it.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
For Richmond, we've talked about on this channel, and certainly plenty of other media pundits have done the same, just talking about how committed Richmond are to a rebuild now. And it's understandable so. I think if they were really honest with themselves, and I think if fans were too, Bolton's not the way they wanted to get this rebuild and the suite of draft picks. Losing a player like Baker or Rioli, okay, not great. But Shea is an absolute game-changing player. There are a handful of players in the league that can do what he has done. It's why a club like Adelaide, for example, targeted and have built and building an Isaac Rankin in the model of what Bolton could be, of this 50-50 dynamic X-factor mid-forward. And Richmond had that. And so, yes, I'm sure they're absolutely thrilled with the draft capital that they've had and should be, given they've completely committed to this rebuild now. But I think if they're honest, Bolton is not the player they wanted to lose, because there is not too many players in the AFL that can do what Bolton has done and still has plenty more years to do, given his age profile. And for Fremantle, this is huge. For Richmond, the now need for these draft picks to work is elevated significantly, because replacing a Bolton is really hard to do. Yeah, getting a small forward in, okay, that's doable. Getting a player that's got some speed and skill through the midfield, yeah, that's doable. Getting that in one player that's a game changer, well, they don't come around all too often. So for Richmond, absolutely stoked for them that they're really accelerating this rebuild. But my word, these draft picks that they have stockpiled, not just from Bolton, but with other moves that they're doing, they have to pop. Absolutely. The irony for me is in this, it sounds like I'm being negative on Richmond. I'm not. I'm just elevating how these draft picks have to work. Is they've departed players from this club with Rioli, now Bolton and Baker. They are really hard to replace style players, and I think they're going to find a way to try and do it. But you throw these three, as well as the retirements of Martin and Grimes, that is a lot of talent and a lot of best 22 and a lot of, in some of these cases, top 5, top 10 on their list out the door that are now being replicated by draft picks. And so that's what they're hoping for now, is this new wave of Tigers, albeit in a very strong forecasted draft, have to take these opportunities. I don't think that there's a Bolton type in this draft. So they're going to have to try to replicate him in other ways, or just recognize that we didn't want to lose him. He wanted to go. We're just making the best of a bad situation. I think if we're all honest, that's what the Tigers have done here, is they're making the best of a bad situation, which is losing a game changer and getting the best trade, draft asset kind of recouping that they can out of this. So not great for Richmond for the here and now, but if they nail the draft picks, okay. This as a totality and in the aggregate could be a great move for them. What does this mean in a fantasy football perspective? Well, he's always flirted with hitting the edges of a premium forward, because he will hold forward status again, holding into 2025. But mid-70s averages across the formats this year and some years gone by, shown some ceiling with 120-plus scores across the formats this year and years gone by, just under a handful of tons across all of the formats. He's just around the edges of a premium forward for us, but never really ascended consistently. Goes on runs of 3, 4, 5 weeks of 105, 110 plus averages, and then goes on other weeks where he struggles to get to 70 and struggles to even get 60 sometimes. So from a classic or a salary cap perspective, I just don't feel like you really want to ride that Bolton roller coaster. Now, I think he'll be better because he's in a more competitive side in Fremantle than Richmond that have got a better midfield unit than what Richmond have had over the last year or two. And so he should get better service. There's a better quality total of tools and just overall team structure around it. So yes, he should be better. But can he push 90, which is really what he needs to do to make him classic relevant as an average? I don't know if he can do that without seeing that for a period of time, which for me makes him classic hard to have trust in. He's not going to be a full-time mid. He's not going to be a full-time forward. He's going to be a split of both, and he'll need goals in those games he's forward to get him towards 90, and he'll need still 20-odd touches to get him in that ballpark. So to me, classic, I'm not too sure if I really want a piece of him. Draft, we know he's going to get picked up at a pretty good rate. I think he should be selected a little bit earlier than what his average would indicate. He's got pretty good durability. Over the past 3 or 4 years, he's played 20-plus games every single year. So that's a big tick in draft. One of the hardest things to navigate on a draft team is when you pick a player that you think could be in and around your F2, F3 spots and then just not be available because they don't have a consistent role or they don't have consistency of durability. Well, Bolton's got both of those things for coaches. So there'll be some roller coaster peaks and troughs here where you'll pop the 120, 130 some weeks, and I still think he'll find ways to give you at 60 and really hurt you. But as an overall average, I think him pushing or maybe even slightly getting over that 80 probably could be the ceiling of what we expect for Bolton, which again makes him still someone you're absolutely picking up on draft day and somebody that you are happy to own, but you're just going to, for every game he wins you in a head-to-head, he probably costs you in a loss as well. Bolton is a fantastic game changer in a football sense, and Fremantle should be thrilled. For Richmond, These draft picks, they better pop. Otherwise, losing a player of his skill set is really going to hurt. For fantasy, you're not touching him in any format. In Classic, for mine, just yet. As a starter, maybe he's an upgrade watch list guy. And in drafts, yeah, a handy enough option that I think has got a handful of points per game of upside, given he's now sitting into a stronger side. But do you agree or disagree on my take about Bolton and what it means in 2025 and beyond? If you're watching this in YouTube or listening to an audio podcast on Spotify, you could comment and let me know what you think about Bolton's improved potential output will be in 2025. If you haven't liked this video yet, make sure you do. If you're listening as an audio podcast, if you haven't given the Coaches Panel a 5-star rating, today is your lucky day, my friend, where you can tick that off your bucket list. In the description of this episode is all the details where you can get in touch with us across social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, where you can get your hands on some brand new Coaches Panel merch and become part of our Patreon. Every single week throughout October and November, our Patreons are receiving an exclusive episode where they are getting Kane and myself dropping our top 50 keeper ranks, talking through who we believe are the most valuable keeper assets to get in a keeper league right now. You can go and get that audio podcast. New episodes dropping every single week throughout the off season. If you want to get access to that and anything else I've just mentioned, the details are in the description of this episode. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and given you something to think about heading into 2025's fantasy footy season. If you haven't caught up on the other episodes yet, make sure you do so. They are available wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. We can't wait to be back chatting with you again, though, real soon about another player movement for the 2024 trade and free agency period.